Hello, everyone. I wanted to introduce myself. I'm Doroni with Edalex, and we are pleased to have you join us for this exciting webinar, which is talking about unlocking job growth with community colleges, and as a catalyst, and kind of a great story that we have here with two of our panelists. We have Kate MacArthur from the Ascension Parish Economic Development, and Chancellor Quintin from the River Parishes Community Colleges to tell their story about their collaboration and how they were able to work together, not only within their community there at Ascension Parish, but also with the state and with industry to bring Hyundai Steel to Ascension Parish, which is a big progressive place for us to see this in this community. And we also have Dan McFadyen, who is joining us as the founder of Edalex. And Dan is going to talk to us about how Edalex works with schools and industry to identify and develop skills, both through their program with Credentialite and also with Skills Aware. So welcome, everybody. We're excited to have you with us. I think we'll have a few minutes just to kind of let some people join us. We're just right on time with this. But I wanted to just address one of the reasons why, Edalex and why we've gone and looked at community colleges, which is the excitement that they bring by looking at workforce development and helping learners develop skills that make them employable outside of the traditional go get a 4-year degree. And I think what Quintin and the River Parishes have done is really looking at developing this and creating new opportunities with skills development and skills recognition. Does everyone want to say a minute of hello for a minute?
I'll defer to my colleague, Kate.
Well, good afternoon. I'm Kate MacArthur. I'm the president and CEO at Ascension Economic Development, and I'm looking forward to sharing our story today on this webinar.
Good afternoon. I'm Quintin. I have the privilege of serving as the Chancellor of River Parishes Community College. We are a 2-year comprehensive community college located in the River region. We are geographically located between the state capital of Louisiana, Baton Rouge, and to our east is New Orleans. We have 4 campuses that literally reside along the river, the Mississippi River specifically. And as we go through our conversation today, you'll have an opportunity to see what that looks like geographically, and just so excited to share the story of the tremendous work that's happening in Louisiana, but specifically in Ascension Parish.
So I'll introduce myself as well. Dan McFadyen, co-founder and managing director at Edalex. Wonderful privilege to be here today, and really looking forward to the discussion, both hearing from Kate and Chancellor Taylor, but also from the audience and having people in the chat and asking questions. So really excited about the opportunity. So thank you everyone for making time today.
And we want to remind everyone we are recording this, and we will be sharing the recording afterwards. If you have questions, please put your questions in to the chat so that we can address those as we go through, and we look forward to doing this. Just to give you a little bit of things, skills emergency and why this is so important. 81% of companies are using skills-based hiring, but only 33% of people are comfortable voicing their skills in job interviews and job searches, and that's including people like myself with lots of experience and degrees, and the newly hired or the newly graduated people. And even as employers are shifting away and looking at skills hiring, 59% of the employees still need to be reskilled by 2030, but hiring managers have a hard time interviewing for skills. They're trained to look for degrees. They're trained for looking at other recognition. And so this is something that we work together to be able to help facilitate this. And by 2034, 90% of our current roles are going to be disrupted by AI. So, this is a really critical shift in the entire global economy right now.
All right. So as I mentioned, I'm at Ascension Economic Development. So we are the local economic development agency for Ascension Parish in Louisiana. We are funded by the Parish of Ascension and the city of Gonzales, which is the major city here. We've been in existence for almost 20 years, and we have had a lot of success in the industrial space overall. So I would say we've been actively looking to diversify. We are in a parish that is divided by the Mississippi River. So we have an east and a west side. The east side of the parish has had the most amount of economic development activity historically and is pretty well built out. The interstate is also located on the east side of the parish. So thanks for bringing up this map. So you can kind of see the map that shows where the parish is in relation to the state. So we are close to New Orleans and Baton Rouge. And then kind of you can see the map where the interstate is located and the river runs through the parish. So it's a very different story of what's been happening here in our parish. So we are very successful in economic development. We have a long history in petrochemical manufacturing. Our mission here at AEDC is to maximize economic opportunity, and we do that through business recruitment and business retention and expansion. We are measured on the amount of sales tax and property tax that is generated annually, as well as the number of new jobs and level of payroll that comes in. So our parish is about 65% in a production occupation as far as the workforce is concerned. So that could be manufacturing, it could be a support industry, it could be transportation, it could be construction. So we are pretty well defined in the workspace. And I say that if you look at the graph, you can see that while our population has steadily been increasing over the last 25 years, the population on the west bank of our parish has not. So they have been slowly declining. So our goal has been, how do we make a more equitable, I guess, transformation? So while we are doing so well, we have the highest median income in the state. On the east side, the west side of our parish is not doing so well. So about 10 years ago, we created an industrial area of about 17,000 acres that was along the Mississippi River. And we worked with partners at the parish, different landowners, regional economic development organizations, state economic development organizations, and created an area that would be zoned for future industrial use. So right now it's all sugarcane farms. So if you pictured the most boring farm area of all time, that is what it looks like today. So just different times of the year, different heights of sugarcane. So that was our future, right? So we built out most of the land on the east side. We've got a very good economic engine. So our future 50 years is really getting that west side of our parish to be energized and participating in this economic boom. So a couple of years ago, we got an RFI from the state of Louisiana with a big project. It was an international project that was looking to locate a steel mill. So they had a very specific list of what they needed out of a site, and we were, I think, one of two places in Louisiana that could actually meet those needs. So essentially, it was the size of the land. So again, we had a big 17,000 acre area to work with, and they really only needed about 1,500. And they needed dock potential, rail potential, and raw materials and inputs. So again, we had this 17,000 acre dream. It was lacking a lot of that infrastructure, but it had the potential to get there. So that's kind of what happened. So they liked the size, they liked the potential. Then the next year and a half was spent on how do we work with our partners to actually get through to make it reality. And that's what we were able to achieve in the last 18 months and have our big announcement at the White House back in March. So it was very exciting, and it's still very exciting and very busy. And I think that's kind of the conversation today, is to say what started as the state and the locals really trying to respond and start getting those visits together to bring this company here, transitioned into bringing in Entergy for power partners to bring electric power to this project, ports, rail providers, and of course, the most important one is workforce training. So while we have this great existing workforce system, this project is on the other side of the river, which is traditionally more rural, less educated, less advantages, more non-traditional employment opportunities. So this is a way that we can utilize not only the people we have in our parish, but the parishes to the west that are adjacent to us that also do not have these types of opportunities. So it was really exciting that when we're putting the package together, and a lot of this was financial partnerships and what we had to give up to bring in this first project. And again, we've already had 2 additional announcements just in the 2 months following. So far the success has paid off, but we did a very creative tax package and then got a lot of funds in from other third parties and the state in order to get all this infrastructure. So back to that road, rail, port. Once we got all that together, then it was a training center that we needed the partnerships from both the training provider, but we needed the funds. So we were able to accomplish that as well. So it's very exciting. It's something that could be replicated. It just takes a lot of passionate people that are willing to do this kind of transformation. And we've got a lot of work over the next 3 years that will be ongoing. But I think I'll let Chancellor Taylor kind of get more into the details on how this training will unfold. And we lured them in, and now we have to deliver. That's kind of the message here.
So, Kate, you want to tell the audience who the company is? Because I don't think you said it.
Oh, see, I'm so used to keeping everything quiet. I never say their name still to this day. I still call it the project name, but it's Hyundai Steel. So that is our big project. This will be their first steel manufacturing plant in the United States. It's primarily to service their auto plants, their Kia and Hyundai facilities in Alabama and Georgia. And they're hoping to expand, and they would like to one day make it this hydrogen fuel cell part of their hydrogen economy. Yeah. So that's the goal. That's the next phase we're moving to in the next 10 or so years. So very exciting.
Yeah, and so I think that's a perfect segue, Kate. And so Quintin Taylor, again, Chancellor of River Parishes Community College, and to Kate's point, right? You had all of those moving parts and those conversations happening at a certain level. And as we were talking before we jumped on here, of all the industry and the folks that Kate and her team and others try to recruit to Louisiana, one of their top 3 questions always is going to be, do you have a skilled and qualified workforce to be able to attract these companies so that they have the workforce they need to produce the products that they need to produce? And so I've been the chancellor now for 3 years at RPCC. And one of the first things I did was I went on a listening tour, and I began to talk to industry in our area about what are you doing today? And then as globally and domestically, there's a greater emphasis on this energy transition, decarbonization, the reduction of greenhouse gases. What does that mean for you as a company? But then also, what does that mean for RPCC as a training provider so that we can train the people you need for today, but then what does that look like over the next 10, 15, 25 years, and make sure that we're in lockstep? And so if you could go to the next slide for me, please. Those conversations created what you're going to see here in a second is our EPIC consortia. That is our Energy Partners for Innovation and Collaboration, right? It is a group of about 30 industry partners in the river region who are all in some shape or form going to be either quickly or over a period of time beginning to shift into this new energy landscape while also respecting and honoring our legacy industry. And so the thought was we needed to make sure that we were moving in lockstep with industry. And so as I give context, just bear with me here because I'm going to try to tie this all together. And so this conversation was happening 3 years ago. You can go to the next slide for me, please. And as part of our EPIC conversation, we focus on 3 work streams, right? One of the most important work streams is the technical curricula and the professional development of our faculty. who is in the classroom and what is their pedagogy knowledge as we begin to transition slowly or quickly. It's just depending on the industry. And so how do we make sure that our curricula is aligned? How do we make sure that our instructors have the support and the resources they need to be able to, again, teach for today, but also teach for 15, 20 years down the road as we pivot. The second piece was talent cultivation. Something that we heard in conversations during that listening tour was that industry needed more trained people, and they felt like we needed to begin to engage students earlier in the K-12 space. But then also, how do we make sure that we're training incumbent workers, those who are currently working in the industry today, to make sure that they've got the skill set to remain competitive and remain on the job and to upskill? And then also, how do we train those college-age students today to make sure that they are on the right path? So there's a whole continuum of K-12 all the way through adults. And then last but not least, market awareness and landscape analysis. A lot of this information is complex and it's difficult to understand to the layperson. So how do we make sure that people in these communities, parents as well, and just as the layperson, understand what all of this means in totality, but what does it mean for me as an individual? And then lastly, as part of that market awareness and landscape analysis, is a lot of folks historically have not associated community colleges with research and development, but we actually do play a role in that space. And so how do we make that what we do as it relates to building and employing folks for this new energy transition, what is our role in the R&D in that space? And so those were the three work streams. And then if you can go to the next slide for me, please. This slide right here talks about what is our competitive advantage. And so Kate, excuse me, I'm sorry, folks. Kate shared a slide that gave you a parish view of what it looks like in Ascension Parish. But what you see right here is the Mississippi River. And each of those little dots, and I apologize if you can't see them, those are the facilities that Kate talked about that reside on the east side of the river. Those 4 stars are where RPCC has a campus. And so we are literally in the epicenter of the industrial corridor as it relates between Baton Rouge and New Orleans. And so our competitive advantage is we are training folks in industry today, but it's in our legacy spaces. And so when Kate talked about 18 months of conversations with the client, she and others came and sat with us at RPCC. I think, Kate, it might have been February of 24, right around there. And when we began to talk about, and the question about workforce development and having a skilled and trained workforce, and we were able to put on the screen, well, this is the direction that we're going. And the fact that we were able to say unequivocally that we have a focus on this energy transition and that we do have a focus on reducing carbon emissions and carbon capture and all of the other things that we know are going to be coming to pass, I think, and I want to be very clear, River Parishes Community College was not the reason Hyundai Steel chose Ascension Parish. But I do believe the fact that it was already in our strategic plan to move in this direction, I think it did give us, again, going to the competitive advantage theme, I think it did make us or provide us a slight competitive advantage versus some of the other places that they were considering. What I can tell you is I know that not a lot of community colleges are moving in this direction, but it's not because of the leader, but it's because of the collaboration, the listening tour, and listening to all of our industry partners. And when it comes to what it is that they're going to need from their community and technical college. You can go to the next slide, please. And so what does this mean for River Parishes Community College specifically? So we're looking at a $5.8 billion low carbon steel facility. We're talking about 4,500 indirect construction jobs to build the plant, another 1,452 to be exact, permanent full-time jobs with an average salary of about $95,000 a year. You heard Kate talk about a training center. So part of the state's package when they pitched it to Hyundai, going back to the having a skilled workforce, was the promise of a $30 million training facility that River Parishes Community College will manage and lead. And we are serving as the primary training provider on this massive project. But what I know for a fact is River Parishes Community College can't do this in isolation. And if you go to the next slide for me, please. So in our area, there are another 5 institutions that we're going to be working with as we put together the regional training plan. Each of these institutions you see, South Louisiana Community College is about 60 miles to our west. Baton Rouge Community College is about 20 miles to our northwest. North Shore Technical Community College is another 25, 30 miles to our northeast. Delgado Community College is 45 miles or so to our east. And then Fletcher Technical Community College is about 35 to 45 miles to our south. So in totality, these 6 institutions will be putting together, or we are putting together currently, a training plan in association with Hyundai Steel and some of their trainers and the community and technical college that they train with in Seoul, Korea. We're putting together a training plan that will focus on these program areas you see, but there are also programs that are proprietary in nature that I can't talk about here for obvious reasons, that we're working with Hyundai to make sure that we're able to provide for them in this new training center. Last thing I'll say is this, that's also really important, is that we can't wait until 2030, which is when the plant itself will be built to start training. Otherwise, we missed the boat. We have got to begin the training specifically on these 5 programs you see on your screen, because we do those today already. So we've got to ramp up the training in these 5 programs, and maybe in the next 2 years begin to ramp up the training for their proprietary needs that they're going to need. Really excited about it. What I would also say is this, is that this kind of work, again, doesn't happen in isolation. It's Kate and her organization. It is our governor's office and his vision for Louisiana, in air quotes, being open for business. It is our state-led economic development organization. It is the leadership of our local leaders. And I don't know if our local leadership has gotten the kind of credit that they deserve, quite frankly. Our parish president, who some will call a county mayor, depending on where you are in the country, he and his team, our sheriff's office, they've put a lot of work into bringing this thing to fruition. And I've been in a lot of places from Miami to Memphis, but I have not been in a place like Ascension Parish where you've got all of those different organizations, all with their own agendas. But the one agenda that's most important is how do we grow our workforce and make Ascension Parish prosperous, as it relates to economic and workforce development.
Just have to say yes. That's the theme of the webinar, is always say yes and figure out all the details later.
That's right.
Well, and Quintin, like we talked about before, it's even beyond this project. You've been looking at how to make sure that everyone taking, whether it's getting their high school equivalency or whether they're actually going through one of your associate programs, that they have marketable skills that make them employable, which is kind of the segue into Dan's talk about skills.
Go ahead.
Yeah, so if I could just touch on that really quickly, right? And so we have 3 mission points in the community and technical college system as a whole. We've got your traditional academic student who's going to come in, earn an associate's degree, and hopefully go to work, or they're going to transfer to one of our local 4-year universities. Then we have our workforce non-credit training. That's the person who is more than likely already working, but wants to come back and get upskilled to be able to earn that next level of a certification. And then we have our adult basic education, Tara, to your point, mission, where people are coming to earn the high school equivalency. But like I said on our previous call, is if all we've done is provided that person an opportunity to earn the equivalency, but not help them to also have a marketable skill, have we really helped to change their life? Or have we only helped them to check a box for a promise or a goal that they wanted to reach? I contest that we've only helped them reach one part of their goal. I think the real goal most people want is to get a job, to take care of themselves and their families, so that they don't have to worry about or be reliant on public assistance. So I appreciate you bringing that up, Tara. It is a holistic approach that makes sure that every single person across each of those mission points, they have a pathway to some kind of marketable employment.
Well, not just comment on that real quick, is that I think I also neglected the fact that, I mean, you mentioned it, Chancellor Taylor, and you're being innovative and actually embracing change. So even if it's controversial, like carbon capture and sequestration, which again, doesn't happen everywhere. It only happens in specific geologies, but rather than wasting time debating what side you're on, is this job going to happen? And if so, we need to train and make sure that we have people to do it when it does happen. And I think the project was extra interesting because it did have that element of carbon capture, because we are trying to get to eventually that full green product and not just the medium blue one that the carbon capture enables us to do in the meantime. But I think it's having that makes the job more, I guess, cool in a way for younger people, where they're doing something that's new. And it's something that we didn't already have here. So we didn't have a steel manufacturer, and we did not have anything in that space to start training on. So it was an extra incentive for us to be able to have a new industry that we haven't had, making steel in a way that's never been done. So I think that was an extra emphasis on saying yes and getting all these hurdles crossed and getting every partner engaged in order to make that happen. I mean, literally from preschool, getting people ready to know what's coming in the community. So I think that was the longer collaborative effort that I maybe did gloss over in my mind, that it really is something new and different. And it's also about embracing what's coming and not trying to separate from it. And you are already doing training for our only steel manufacturer. I think there's 2 other ones in the state that do something with steel, but this is our first one here in Ascension. So
Great point, Kate.
And building on what you just flagged, Kate, it's not just this this lead company in Hyundai Steel, but also all the ancillary and related companies that will come and support them. And as you innovate with the skills and the jobs there, then that draws others to it. So you get this network multiplier effect, which is really exciting to hear. Wonderful.
And, Chancellor Taylor, I just think for people that aren't in Louisiana, if you could just speak real quickly to the legacy industries that are here, because I think a lot of people don't know, they think of Louisiana, unless you live here, they don't really understand how ingrained petroleum and oil and the chemical industry is and has been as the legacy industries for this state.
No, you're absolutely right. I mean, I think about a company like BASF. They've been in Ascension Parish, Geismar, Kate, I want to be right here, at least north of 40, 50 years, right? So they've been here. I know you've got CF Industries on the West Bank. They've been there for 60 years, right? So to your point, we have legacy industry, petrochemical, oil and gas, and manufacturing who, listen, they've been tremendous partners, right? I mean, we know that Ascension Parish on the East Bank specifically wouldn't be where it is, and I don't want to overstate this, Kate, so keep me honest here, but I don't think we would have the kind of economic prosperity that we have on that side of the river where I live and where Kate and others live, had it not been for those industries being there, right? And so, and they're going to continue to do their main core business, but they too, in some capacity, are looking at a shift to be more, I don't want to say green because everybody's not going green, but I think you get my point, right? To move in the direction of reducing their carbon footprint, right? And relying more on hydrogen and some other sources of energy.
Sustainability. That's correct.
Sustainability. That's it.
And the thing is, I think what's important too is understanding that with this new opportunity and what you're talking about, which goes into what Edalex does, is how do you identify the skills that these people have acquired in these legacy roles that will translate into these new innovation roles that are coming?
Yeah.
Wonderful. Well, I think that's a wonderful segue. So I might jump in here And again, fantastic discussion. Lovely to hear Chancellor Taylor and Kate, your perspectives, and there's certainly some themes that have carried through. The collaboration, not only with industry but also with other educational institutions, and the concept of lifelong learning, and so many themes that really resonate with us at Edalex, and where we come in is thinking about how can we employ and deploy technology to help educational institutions, to help industry, and ultimately to help learners and workers to recognize the skills that they have. So if we can jump to the next slide, and I want to circle back to what Parish shared in terms of the skills emergency context, and even what both Quintin and Kate have shared, actually touch on each of these points. So clearly, Quintin, you flagged. Question number one is, what skills does someone have, or what skills does a local region have? And for those who are listening, either from potentially from another community college or from industry, thinking about how what are the skills that industry is mandating, and how are they looking at it? What are the signals to industry to identify that someone does indeed have a particular skill? And that certainly ties in with that second point around building the comfort for individuals in expressing their own skills. And we were shocked when we first saw these results that only a third of graduates feel comfortable voicing their skills. And Quintin, to your point of people who are going back to get their GED, or even those who are going through K-12, it is a process that needs to happen early and needs to be reinforced throughout education and ultimately throughout someone's working career. And many of us will have heard the expression lifelong learning. Not too long ago, I heard the expression lifelong skilling, and actually, shifting that emphasis to during people's work career, the emphasis has to be on skills, and that's what they need to advance. That's what industry is demanding and needs in these times when there are such rapid changes, and really exciting to hear about the opportunities that Hyundai Steel coming in, and RPCC working with them and the broader community provides in terms of not only the number of roles, and great that you know them down to the individual role, because each one of those roles is a person, right? That's changing that individual's life, their family, the broader community, but also the great average pay. So this has the potential to make a fantastic impact. And I just want to highlight this last point around AI disruption. So it's important that communities be looking at what are where is industry going, where is the economy going, and being able to look forward and anticipate and build towards that. Jeffrey Hinton, who's widely known as the godfather of AI, last week was asked around what jobs will be AI proof, and his response was that no job is going to be AI proof, but some of the trades, and he singled out plumbing as an example of being able to work with your hands, but also have those critical skills to work and problem solve, and a lot of those human skills or durable skills, soft skills, call them what you will, just how important those are for all of us.
Hey, Dan.
Yeah.
Not to cut you off, but you touched on something very, very important. In my opinion, it goes back to that 33%, that second sort of graphic, is that we can't just produce robots or cogs in the wheel, right? Of course, you got to have the technical skills to be able to do this work, but you have to be able to think critically, right? And so it's important upon us, and I'm so proud of my team, or our team at RPCC, for looking at work-based learning opportunities, and making sure that we are being very deliberate in that you're going to leave here a skilled and trained employee, but you're also going to be able to communicate conflict resolution, Right. All the things, to your point of the soft skills, has got to be embedded in what we're teaching every day. And so that's a big part of what some of the emphasis that we're putting in our programming. And that's on our non-credit workforce side, but it's also in our 2-year associate's degree. And it's also in our adult education programming that we're trying to implement across all 3 of those mission points. So we are turning out truly a well-prepared and diverse product of a student, right? And you hit the nail on the head with that. I was thinking that was critically important to mention as well.
Perfect. No, that's great. Wonderful to hear that. And again, when we get to the Q&A session, I'm sure we'll have some questions on. I know I do, but no, that's fantastic, Quintin. So then, where does Edalex fit in? And to give you a context around how we work with different institutions and industry, I want to spend just a few minutes talking about some of our solutions. But also to have people think more broadly, again, from an institution perspective, how are you recognizing skills? How are you developing those skills? From industry, how are you identifying skills within your workforce and the skills gaps and opportunities to send your workforce back to institutions like RPCC to get those extra durable skills as well as technical skills. So at Edalex, we focus on connecting learning skills and evidence. And we have a number of different platforms that you see here that range from an open source digital repository to store the learning and training materials for education, as well as OpenRSD, which has now become the world's largest open library of rich skill descriptors, which are atomic level definitions of skills. And again, we've talked about skills throughout this session, but what is so important in this is around defining a common language for everyone. So when we talk about a communication skill, the ability to communicate sounds simple, but actually context is really important. So is that in a workforce, in a workplace, or is it in a medical setting, right? Bedside manner it could literally be a life or death impact. Or is it in a retail setting or some other context? So having that, which is both human readable and machine readable. And then we also have Credentialite, which discovers and shares evidence of skills from learning. And I'll talk about that briefly. And also Skills Aware, which is our newest platform that is an AI-powered skills recognition engine. So if we could go on to the next slide. What is so important, again, coming back to that topic around giving learners a voice for their skills, and how do we empower people to talk, again, as you so eloquently shared, Quintin, not only for the technical skills, but also those human skills, those durable soft skills. So what Credentialite does is it surfaces that data based on how an individual learner has performed. And so that in these examples, Lucy and Samantha, and this is, not expecting anyone to see the small detail on here, but that they're both different individuals. They have different skills, they have different strengths, they have different development areas. And so with Credentialite, we're able to provide quantitative feedback, so the numbers, the scores. But what's so much more important is actually sharing the qualitative feedback, so that we can say, Lucy is fantastic at conflict resolution, or that Samantha is really she has strong ability to work within a team. And also potentially to share artifacts, evidence from their learning. Again, this is all with an eye towards giving learners a voice for their skills. So a question to all the attendees from educational institutions to question, how are you helping to develop not only the skills in your learners, but also to give them a voice, the evidence that backs them up. And there are a number of different ways, but Credentialite is just one that we're putting forward here today. And then if we could go to the next slide. So that's one approach. Another approach, which we're really thrilled about, and we've referenced AI a number of times so far, is how can we harness the power of AI to help learners, to help workers, to help individuals, organizations to recognize those skills. And we know that individuals gain skills from a wide range of activities, certainly from formal education, but also informal and non-formal, right? So it could certainly through work, could be through volunteers, hobbies, other areas. So how do we create the holistic view of a learner or of a worker? And that's where that's where skills aware comes in. It sits at the confluence of this ecosystem of individuals, organizations, industry, but also very importantly, credential issuers, and supporting a range of different activities, such as recognition, right? Certainly for the individuals, compliance is safety and other areas, very critical area, and ultimately employment, and that's been a central theme here. So it is really around using the power of AI so that an individual can have a discussion, have a chat with skills aware, and say, well, here's my resume, or you know what, I don't have a resume, I don't have any skills. And one of the stories I like to share is one of the high schools, one of the local high schools. Talking to the deputy principal, she flagged that a student came to her and said, I don't have any skills, I only work at McDonald's. I'm like, what are you talking about? By having that experience, you clearly have the ability to collaborate, to resilience to work under pressure, customer service, right? Teamwork. So there are all these skills, but people just don't have that voice. So being able to share that, to say, look, but I do have these years of experience, or I've worked in different industries, and I want to make this a shift to a clean energy role, or how do they position themselves? How do employers position themselves? So if we could go to the next slide, second to last slide for me, just to share that one of the special things that we've done with Skills Aware is to train the platform on a library, and an industry-informed, quality-assured library of 73,000 skills and competencies across a number of different vocational areas, as well as durable skills, those soft skills. So by training the engine on this, then we have very specific performance criteria to be able to give users feedback on how are they performing, how can they improve, where are those gaps. And it's ultimately it comes back to giving those learners a voice for their skills. And I think broadly, whatever technology an educational institution is thinking to deploy, one of the critical questions, if we can go to the next slide, is around, does it work, right? Is there proven efficacy? Can we ensure that this is going to provide the impact and the benefits for the learners, for the employers, and ultimately for the community? And so in our case, we're thrilled that an efficacy study with the University of Dayton in Ohio and the University of Melbourne in Australia identified that 76% of learners increased their confidence in expressing their skills after getting one of those personalized evidence records. So that's ultimately what it's all about, around making an impact for users and for learners. So I will wrap up there.
Well, and I think all three of these discussions have been really exciting, because they talk about the future and they talk about pathways that people can see. There's no longer this dead end that you've reached a certain point, you can't go anywhere else, because we're opening the doors and showing that there's lots of opportunities. I want to remind everyone, if you have questions for any of the panelists, please put them into the Q&A section. And in the meantime, I've got a bunch of questions, and I'm going to kick it off because I'm in charge. One of the things that comes to mind for me, and as you're doing this, you were talking about the size of the parish and what's here and how you've had to work with various different things. But what about the infrastructure for not just the railroad and the things, but you're going to have massive transportation coming in? We've got old freeways here, or old interstates, are not even called freeways, that are already congested with the plants and the people getting off at certain times. So what are you doing to look at that kind of infrastructure within the parish itself to be able to attract this type of manufacturing or this type of industry?
Yes, so infrastructure is a ongoing challenge forever for everyone. There's no easy solution. So the way that we started with this specific area when beginning the concept was we did a map to show where we thought the best routes and locations would be. And then a few years ago, we started planning for one new road that would be helpful should any of these companies come, and used a lot of political capital to go ahead and start paying for that road with no one. So it would have been a road to nowhere eventually if nothing had ever come. But they were willing to do that, even though there are many other places that desperately need road improvements here. But then it was really utilizing the state's desire for progress. So we know that our roads are challenging. We know that we need a new bridge. But before we get to all of that, it was how do we address what's now? So that was how we were able to basically use combined funds between the parish and the state. And thankfully, we got a lot of our state legislatures to push this through to be able to use funds for the region. So it wasn't just for Ascension Parish, even though we are the biggest beneficiary first, it's all those workers that are going to be coming in from about an hour away in a lot of cases. So how do we move people efficiently? How do we move them safely? So there's about 4 new roads that are going in that's going to help. And again, there'll be challenges during construction because we can't build anything fast enough. So our traditional solutions really are putting in those new routes, but I mean, we are looking at other options like putting temporary housing on the location sites to cut down on construction traffic. I even looked at how we could get an old cruise ship and park it at one of these levees and try and move construction workers over the levee, like just any out of the box solution that we could come up with to try and lessen the impact on the road. I mean, at this point, what we've been doing on our east side is really focusing on shift change and trying to stagger work shifts in order to lessen the traffic. But we know we've got a big challenge with both temporary and permanent traffic that's going to come from this, but it really is opening up another corridor between New Orleans and Houston that has always been kind of in the planning stages, a new bridge, a new 4-lane expressway that just hasn't made it across yet. So this is our way to kind of start those pieces to continue building it till it actually completes that entire project that's been talked about for at least 20 years.
So that speaks to what Dan was mentioning earlier, which is all the ancillary jobs that are coming out of this project, right? And you know, how the skills for people that, you know, maybe mid-management or experience that need to go back and reskill to be able to address some of the new innovation that's out there.
Well, and some people in Louisiana like these temporary type of jobs too, which I know that sounds weird, but it's just a non-traditional employment opportunity. So we find that a lot of construction activity, they like to work long hours for a short amount of time and then have 3 months off to go hunting and fishing and do whatever they want. And then some of them, they like to go to Texas and then come back here, and some don't want to leave. So it gives an opportunity that with the amount of construction we have going on and the amount of trained people, that they've got a little flexibility to enjoy the quality of life they're seeking and still have a job that pays their bills and supports their life.
So I know sometimes it comes up that people want to know, like, at what age is too old to look at your skills and things like that. And I think, you know, Dan, you probably have some insight on that.
Yes, yeah. Well, that was a question that came to me directly. So, and I talked about lifelong learning, lifelong skilling. We work with a school where they're starting in 7th grade. And actually even earlier to start talking about skills, but to think around increasingly using platforms like Skills Aware to get that sense. So yeah, some of the initial work we're doing is more in the workforce perspective. One of the groups we're working with is a government project where we're supporting veterans who are transitioning from active duty into the civilian workforce, and construction is one of the key areas, right? So how do they get those skills and the language in a civilian sense for all the incredible skills they developed in the military, or looking at aged care, for whom English may not be their first language, and they may not have formal credentials, but they have the experience, they have the skills. So how do we get that? Or other groups like the Scouts, who have an incredible, here in Australia, who have an incredible history around recognizing skills. So lots of exciting things. So I think increasingly, and Quintin, you touched on this as well, it needs to start in K-12, and to give people that understanding and confidence and capability, the ability to demonstrate those skills and build upon those over the years. And the work that RPCC is doing is fantastic in that space.
If I can build on that just really quickly, so we actually are in the development phase of a program that will start this fall. And you heard me talk about EPIC earlier, but this is our EPIC E3 Academy. E3 is Engage, Expose, and Employ, where this fall we will be beginning in 3rd grade. It's a free after-school program where we will begin to introduce students in elementary school in Donaldsonville and an elementary school on the East Bank in Sorrento, where we begin to introduce them all the different careers in industry, both white collar and blue collar. We never want to be accused of trying to funnel students into one way or another, right? And so the goal is that we want to expose them so by the time they get to 9th grade, they would have literally been exposed to almost every single opportunity in one of these facilities, so that when they get to 9th grade, they can make an informed decision of, you know what, I think I want to major in finance because I want to be the CFO. Or I think I want to go and do, I don't know, welding because I've learned that welding is really cool, right? And so selfishly, I must admit, we are standing up these early college technical academies where they enroll in 9th grade. And when they graduate high school, they will leave with the high school diploma and an associate's degree, hopefully in one of these technical programs, or they'll leave with the high school diploma and multiple industry-based certifications that make the student marketable and employable right out of high school, right? So you heard me talk about industry saying they needed more skilled employees and they needed them quickly. And so we just feel like we have to almost be all things to all people and really do a continuum of 3rd grade all the way to 65, right? And whatever that looks like within that continuum, there's a place for you with RPCC and our partners at the public school system in Ascension Parish to make sure that we are really creating this pipeline of individuals. So when we look 10 years down the road, right, this sustainability and clean energy is not foreign to them. They've been in it since they were 7 years old, and they're aware of it and they're competent, right? And they can talk about it, they can articulate it, and they can do the work at the same time. So really excited about that. And that was a great question.
Right.
One of the things that comes to mind with me, there's a book called Lifelong Learning by Michelle Weiss, and she talks about it. And today I would be very tired if I was one of those people, but that the people who are going to live to be 150 have already been born, and that the average length of a career is going to be 100 years. So obviously, if you graduate from college with your 4-year degree at 22 and you're going to live till you're 150, there's going to be a lot of evolution and innovation and transition happening over that 150-year career that really requires skills evidence. One of the things that I'm interested, and I think maybe some other people might be too, Chandler Taylor, is, what AI skills are you incorporating, or how are you incorporating AI into your skills to get that evidence that might already be in place from a record of, their previous learning? a lot of on-the-job training with legacy industry took place long before there was any of this type of documentation.
Yeah, so that's a loaded question, right? And so I want to be able to give you a sound answer, but it's fluid, right? So kind of like those legacy industries, sometimes it's difficult to transition and do things differently. AI is a whole new universe for us, right? And so we are working today with our faculty senate, right? So faculty tend to want to do what we've always done from a teaching and learning standpoint, and I respect the heck out of it. But I also know that we can't ignore AI. To your point, Dan, I forget who you said, somebody mentioned to you that it's going to have an impact on every profession. Yeah. So how do we embrace it? How do we make sure that it is embedded in what it is that we're doing? But also, how do we make sure we do it responsibly and that we protect the integrity of teaching and learning, right? So that was probably not the best answer you wanted to hear, but what I can tell you is we're figuring it out and trying to make sure that, again, we embrace it, we embed it into what it is we're doing, but also not to sacrifice the integrity of teaching and learning, to make sure that our students can use AI, but use it responsibly, to make sure that we're not just pushing people out because they were able to use that platform to just kind of get a grade, if that makes any sense.
Yeah. Yeah.
And Dan, how are you collaborating with colleges and things like that to help them identify the skills that have been taught in previous courses and things?
Yeah, well, and great question. But just building on what you flagged, Quintin, I think one of the really exciting and encouraging things is just hearing how you're anticipating and planning and not sitting back and having AI and having energy transition and all these challenges happen to RPCC, right? So it's a proactive stance and a collaborative stance, and pulling that all together. So yeah, look, we work with a range of different institutions, community colleges, statewide departments of education, down to individual schools. So it's all around first having that discussion around what is important to an institution, to an organization, and then how can we best recognize it? So we talk about recognizing what you value and what your community values, and Quintin, as you flagged, it comes down to skills. And Kate, as you flagged, it's around building out that economy and working in a collaborative fashion. So it actually, for many of our clients, it is around these durable skills, soft skills. So communication, collaboration, problem solving, critical thinking. They go by different names, but they are such enduring skills, and ultimately those are the skills that will help however long. I don't think I want a 150-year career, but I think that's another webinar for us. But please not another century of work. But it is those human skills that will differentiate and do differentiate us from AI and not robots and automation. And so, but those are also the hardest for people to quantify. To say, well, how do I prove that I have critical thinking? How do I prove that I can collaborate? And that's where, looking at education and group project, group work, and lots of hands-on activities, those activities. But then it is also around surfacing that data that so many institutions already have, but just bringing that data to light and synthesizing it into meaningful language for the students, for the learners, so that they can build their confidence.
So I mean, we're at time, so I just kind of wanted to wrap things up, if I could. Chancellor Taylor and Kate, is you've kind of put this collaboration together, and it is unique. And are you being approached by other community colleges to understand how to get this collaboration between government and industry and academic and economic development and infrastructure. How, are you kind of like, guys, show us the guideline to do this. Show us how to bring skills into this in our communities.
Interesting you say that. I mean, we've just been invited to go and give this the magic sauce to at Georgia Tech for a conference that has 4-year in community colleges and business and industry and the public sector. It's a P3 summit, which is at Georgia Tech sometime in November. We've had other people reach out to us. I mean, Yazoo, Mississippi was in town last week on a day off, and we all got with them and really spent some time to help them kind of look through our lenses to help kind of give them a blueprint. So the short answer is yes. And it's exciting to know that, I've only been in Louisiana for 13, 14 years. And when I first got here and before I got here, it was always, for the most part, on the bad list, right? Graded in the 50 and, 49 or lower, right? But that's not the case today, right? And so we've got to make sure that we scream and tell this story from the mountaintops, because Louisiana is doing something right, and Ascension Parish and the leadership that we have here, our state legislators and our governor, we're doing something right. And it feels good for one to be able to tell that story. I don't know if Kate wanted to add to that.
No, I think you summed it up perfectly.
Well, we at Edalex want to be part of your collaboration. We want to help you be able to articulate those skills, identify those skills, and move this forward as you continue to be so exciting with this innovation.
Look forward to continuing the conversation. Just want to thank you all so much for the opportunity.
Thank you.
And we will have a recording here for everyone. It will be sent out, and we look forward to you joining us for future community college webinars.
Thank you so much. Take care.
Great discussion today. Thank you both.
Likewise.
Thanks.